Sorry, baby, the video stopped. So, it says, every day the king's queens, lords in waiting, ladies in waiting, head cook, kitchen maid, and shepherds began to search for her. Before night they had searched through every corner of the palace, from the garret to the tower down to the lowest cellar. But not even a glimpse of the maiden did they see. The next day they searched again, but they came out no better. On the third day, and on many a day after that, they did the same, but with the same result. At last the king concluded that the princess must have been stolen away by a giant or a troll. If that was not so, everybody searched in everyday places where to be of the least use. The search must be men who were ready for danger and adventure. Therefore the king commanded that there should be no more searching, and that one should return to his business. Then he sent heralds throughout his kingdom, and all the kingdom round about. They were mounted on handsome horses, and they carried great trumpets. Whenever they came to a city or village, they took their stand in the marketplace and blew their trumpets 3 times, and then 3 times, then 7, then 7 times, then 7. Of course, everyone knew that they were the king's heralds, and the people came in crowds to hear the message. When a great assemblage had come together, the heralds produced a royal promulgation and read it with a loud voice. The promulgation declared that the king's only daughter had been stolen away by a giant or a troll, that whoever thought her back to him should have the princess for his wife, and half the kingdom for her dowry. Such a reward at this soon filled the palace courtyard with folk who were eager to try their luck, and every one of them was a prince or a knight. The king entertained them stupendously. Then he gave his father a blessing and sent them on their way. Of all the brave adventurers, however, not one brought back the princess, or even any word of where she might be. The king and the queen were full of sorrow. And the whole court sorrowed with them. But the young shepherd... Sorry, baby, the kitty cat's roaming around. She's gonna jump back on the bed. Meow, come here. Hi, baby. You're okay. The king entertained them suspendedly. Then he gave them a fatherly blessing and sent them on their way. Of all those brave adventurers, however, not one brought back the princess, or even any word of where she might be. The king and the queen were full of sorrow, and the whole court sorrowed with them. But the young shepherd sorrows most of all. He drove his flock to a pasture every morning, but now he never sang when he returned at night, for his heart was so full of grief. One night, when the shepherd lay fast asleep, the little elfling suddenly appeared before him and pointed to the northward. To the north, he said. Oh, don't need my hair. To the north, he said. There awaits your queen. I will have no one but the princess for my queen, thought the shepherd, so it must be that I am the one who can find her. In the morning, as soon as it was light, he went to the palace and took the cook. He took the head cook, his first friend at court. Then he wanted to speak with the king. The head cook was astonished. He said, "You have served here many years. Then you could easily get a little raise in wages without asking the king himself. I will speak for you if you wish. I thank you heartily," replied the shepherd, "but this is not what I want." "Well, then, what is it?" asked the head cook. "I beg your pardon humbly," said the shepherd, "but it is a matter between the king and myself." "Only hear that," cried the head cook, good-natured. "Reality, you seem as important as if you belonged to the royal house." Wait. "I beg your pardon most humbly," said the shepherd, "but it is a matter between the king and myself." "Only hear that," cried the head cook, good-naturedly. "Really, you seem as important as if you belonged to the royal house. Maybe you will tell me one of these days that your highness is a prince." "You know," said the shepherd, "one may sometimes become what he is not." The head cook laughed until he was tired. But prince or not prince, he led the shepherd up to the door to the great hall where the king sat on his throne. He was leaning his head in his hands. He was leaning his head on his hands, and he grieved over his stolen princess. The shepherd stepped forward, suited himself, and said for his health. The king looked up and nodded kindly. "Thank you for asking," he replied, "but nothing matters since I have lost my little girl." I know exactly how that feels. "But how are you yourself? I hear that you are the best shepherd we have ever had." "Thank you, your majesty," said the shepherd. "There is something that I should like to talk with you, if you will not take it amiss." "Don't be troubled about that," replied the king. "You have always been a good and faithful servant, and if you want anything, speak out boldly." "Then I will ask most humbly that I may be free for a little while," said the shepherd, "so I can go out and try to find the princess." When the king heard this, he was angry. He sprung up and struck his throne with his fist so that it cracked. "How dare you come here and harass an old man in this fashion, your king and lord into the bargain?" he cried. Justing may be a good thing, but everything has its time, and it may a long day since I felt inclined to merriment. "But your majesty, I am not jesting," said the shepherd steadily. "And you think that you can succeed where so many knights and princes have fallen?" demanded the king. "One can but do his best," returned the shepherd. "The royal proclamation did not say whether a man cloak must be made of a prince's scarlet or a shepherd's gray." The knight saw that the young man was really in earnest. Straightway his anger vanished, and he looked into the determined face of the shepherd. He found himself feeling more hopeful than when the great company of knights and princes has set out. You are right, my young friend, he said. Often there is a noble heart under a pleasant cloak, a peasant's cloak. Only being my daughter, only bringing my daughter back is nothing to me whether you are a shepherd or a prince. Farewell, my king, said the shepherd. If I do not come back with the princess, it will become a great and toil, and however it may be taken of my life. Wait, the king cried. You will want a horse and armor and weapons. Go to the master of the horse and tell him for me to give you whatever you need. I thank you, responded the shepherd, but all I need besides what I have already is a good strong knapsack. As you will, agreed the king. I shall watch for you night and day. Then he grasped the hand of the shepherd and said farewell. The young man went to the kitchen and got a good, strong knapsack. Then he went out into the courtyard, expecting to slip away without anyone knowing his departure. Kitty cat's underneath the bed. I lost my spot. As well, agreed the king, I shall watch for you night and day. Then he grasped the hand of the shepherd and said farewell. The young man went to the kitchen and got a good strong knapsack. Then he went out into the courtyard, expecting to slip away without anyone knowing of his departure. He was greatly surprised to find it half full of servants of the palace, for a page of the king's hall had told them what he meant to do. Look at the simpleton, they cried. He can herd sheep, and so he thinks he can kill giants? They pointed their fingers at him. So he thinks he can kill giants. They pointed his fingers at him and laughed and hooted. But he only put his hand into his pockets to make sure that the bell and the pipe were safe. And then he raised his cap and went on his way. See, some people just don't understand what you're trying to do. So they make fun of you because they don't understand. Straight to the north he walked, just as the Elven King had told him. He passed only lonely mountains, through fertile valleys, over desert plains, and through vast wilderness. He climbed over steep rocks and forded softly flowing rivers. At last he walked so long that he thought the end of the world could be near, not so far away. The ocean lay before him. A little distance from the shore was a beautiful forest-covered island, and on the island rose a palace that was far more splendid than the other one from which he had come. The shore was so curving that by walking a little way you could see their sides of the palace. High up in the tower was an open window, and in the window he saw a young girl. She saw him standing on the shore, and so she waved a silken ribbon at him. Then the heart of the shepherd beat fast. He knew both the princess and the silken ribbon, for it was the very ribbon that the little lamb used to wear. But how could he cross the sea? For the water was deep and no boat was in sight. The shepherd sat down on the shore and pondered, but he could not think of any plan. Suddenly he remembered his little pipe. He took it out in his mouth and blew a gentle, "Good evening," said a voice. "Good evening to you," responded the shepherd. for there before him stood a little dwarf with the glass shoes. "What do you want?" asked the dwarf. "Oh," cried the shepherd, "be quick and get me over to the palace." "I shall be done," replied the dwarf. "Get on my back." The shepherd wondered how that could be brought about, but in an instant the dwarf became a giant, great hawk. Oh, he seated himself upon its back. The hawk spread out its wings, flew through the air, and did not stop till they had crossed over to the island. There it lighted on the ground and let the shepherd get off, and then it vanished as suddenly as it had appeared. The shepherd walked up to the palace and into the kitchen. The head cook came towards him and asked, "What is your business here?" "Oh, I should like to find work. And is there any chance to be any place?" Oh, baby, you're stuck in my hair. Okay. There you go. I'm sorry, baby. I don't want you in my hair. "I should like to find work if there is chance to any place vacant," he replied. "That depends upon what you can do," said the head cook. "I can herd animals," the shepherd answered. "Then you have come to the very nick of time," declared the head cook. "You see, the palace belongs to a giant who had... Oh, baby. Why don't you come and lay down instead of trying to build a nest in my hair?" I know. You okay? Or should you just lay down beside me? Okay, declared the head cook. "You see, the palace belongs to a giant who has such an enormous number of cows that he needs the very best shepherd in the world to herd them. He pays good wages, but if you lose a single creature, he will eat you up and hide and hair." "That would not be really pleasant," replied the shepherd, "but I do think he will ever grow very, very fat on me. Early in the morning I will be ready to begin work." On the following day the shepherd drove the giant cattle to the forest, then roaming about the mountain so widely that he could never have brought them together had it not been for the little bell. But when it drew near evening, he tinkled the bell, and the herd came together like so many lambs. He drove them toward the palace, but long before it was in sight, he saw the giant coming out to meet him. "I'll eat you in place of the one that is missing," the giant shouted when he was yet a great way off. The shepherd rang his bell, and all the cows stood still. The giant counted them 3 times, both forwards and backwards, but however way he might count, he found that the number was just right. "That was well done," he said. "You shall be my herdsman all your days." Saying this, he went to the shore room, loosed his magic boat, and round around the island 3 times, as he was accustomed to do at night to make sure that everything was safe. While the giant was gone, the shepherd looked up to the tower window. There stood the princess, waving her silken ribbon to him and singing softly, "Oh, shepherdman, oh shepherdman, come tonight, when my star shines brightly down. Come to me then, and I will be yours, and you shall wear my crown. The shepherd listened to this song and understood that he was to come at night and feed the princess. That night, when everyone was asleep, he stole out the tower and sang softly under the princess's window. Under your lattice the shepherd man stands. Tonight, tonight, he is here. The shadow will hide you. Come down, fair lady, don't fear. The princess leaned out the window and whispered, I am locked in behind an iron door and bound with a chain of gold. You must come up here and break it. The shepherd could not think of any way to get up the tower, but he remembered his little pipe. He took it out and blew a long, long blast. It was like a magic pipe. It was a magic pipe, and the giant could not hear it. This time the little king of elves appeared. As soon as he knew what the shepherd wanted, he said, Follow me. And they went up into the tower with the least of difficulty in the world, for as soon as the elven touched the iron door, it opened up itself, and as soon as he touched the heavy gold chain, it fell down to pieces. The princess took the shepherd's hand, and all three went down the stairs and out the tower and away to the seashore. There the elven stopped and sang a gentle voice, Little pig, through the waves you must go. Oh, your back a princess must ride, the fairest princess in all the wide world, with a brave young king by her side. In an instant the little elf girl with the pointed hat stood before them. She sprung into the sea and turned into a strong pike playing on the water. Now sit yourselves on the pike's back, blade the elving, but the princess must not be afraid, no matter what happens, for if she is, then all her powers will be good for nothing. The princess promised that she would certainly keep the courage up, and seated herself on the back of the pike with the shepherd behind her. The elving vanished, and the pike shot out into the waves with speed that the water roared and rushed around it. Well, all was going on, the giant lay asleep, but just as the pike set out from the shore, he awoke and thought he heard an unusual roaring and rushing. He looked out of the window and saw that something was moving through the waves and leaving the long white wake behind it. Someone is helping the princess to escape, he said to himself, and in a moment he had taken the form of an eagle and was flying after them as fast as he ever could. In another moment he went and he would have caught him, but not the pike heard the flapping of the wings and drove down deep into the sea. Then they would have been safe, but alas, the princess was frightened and screamed, and in an instant the elving power became good for nothing. The eagle seized both the boundaries of the claws and flew back to the palace with them. Then he led aside his eagle from form and said, It will be a long time before you will take me again on such a trip. In the morning, my little dear, you shall marry me, and you, my friend, shall come to the wedding and dance in your chains before you are hanged. You will both have pity on company later, but I shall have to leave you alone for a while. The workmen must carry the princess to the chambers in the tower and lock the iron door with 7 locks. He loaded the shepherd with chains, and threw him into the dungeon 15 fathoms under the ground. There lay the shepherd, far down in the darkness, which neither sun nor moon could give its light. The princess will be the bride of the giant, and I shall be put to death, he said to himself sadly. Then he remembered what the elven had told him, that if he got into any terrible distress, he could break the pipe. Surely, he thought, no trouble could be worse than this. If the pipe fails, there is no hope. Thereupon he took out the little pipe and broke it in two. Again the little king of elves appeared. "Oh, be quick and help me to free the princess, to carry her back to her father," cried the shepherd. "It shall be done," declared the elven. "Only follow me." The old man led the shepherd through the closed doors and flew open to draw near and through many splendid rooms. At last they came into the great hall, which was full of swords, spears, axes, and various other weapons. They all gleamed and sparkled for somewhere of polished steel, others of pure gold. Round about the walls stood chests full of splendid armor, and in the corner was a great fireplace. The elven went to the fireplace and made up a fire. Then take off those clothes," he said, as he stared at the shepherd boy who had obeyed. The elven caught up the sheep herding clothes and tossed them into the fire, where they were soon burnt up. Then he went to a strong iron chest and took form of a costly coat of mail, which shone with the purest gold. "Make ready," he said. Again the shepherd obeyed, and soon he was full armor from head to foot. Then the elven took the sword from the wall and buckled it to the shepherd's side. "There are the swords, and as sharp as these," he said. "But it was decreed from the beginning that this one and no other should be the death of the giant." The shepherd was not used to armor, but he moved as easily as though he had been the prince who wore a coat of mail all his life. They went again through the many splendid rooms and closed doors, so she returned to the gloomy dungeon, 15 fathoms underground. "Do you want anything more?" asked the elven. "No, only to thank you for your friendly aid," answered the shepherd. "And if we do not meet again, give your dwarf and your girl kindly greetings from me too." "Farewell, and good luck to you," said the elven, and in the moment he was gone. Again the shepherd was alone, deep underground, where neither sun nor moon could give its light. But he was no longer sorrowful, for he only impatient for the time to come when he took up to the wedding hall. With the princess's matters were much worse, for now that the young shepherd was in the hands of the giant, she had not the least hope of escaping the dreadful fate of becoming the bride of the horrible monster. When the witch woman came to dress her for the wedding, she begged them to kill her with a sword or throw her into the sea. But they only laughed and put the golden crown on her head, and loaded her splendid fingers with the great rings of red gold, and put bracelets on her arms and necklaces about her neck. And they led her down to the waiting hill and placed her on the table in the seat of honor beside the giant. Then came the wedding feast. The giants and giantess ate and drank enormously and had a very gay time. But the princess sat and cried and said to herself, how happy I might have been if only I had not let myself be afraid. When evening came, the courtyard was lit up, while mighty torches, every one as big as a pine tree. The giant and his guests tiptoed down merrily to see the shepherd dance in his chains, and the poor little princess was made to go with them. Go down to the dungeon and bring up the prisoner, commanded the giant. The servants took their torches and scrambled down to the dungeon, but instead of the shepherd, behold, there stood a splendid young knight with sword and shield and fastening armor. They were so badly frightened that they dropped their torches, and they made their way through the dark passage up to the courtyard as fast as they could scramble, for the fierce young knight was at their heels. Now the eyes of the giants were so sharp that they could see straight through the glimmering armor. "Huh, it's nothing but the shepherd in a bit of mail," he said scornfully. "Shepherd or not, you are to come out here and fight for the princess," cried the prisoner, and he drew his sword. It flashed like fire "Shepherd or not, you are to come here and fight for the princess," cried the prisoner, and he drew his sword. It flashed like fire, and at first sight of the giant turned pale and flew to the ground, for he had heard of the burning sword, and he knew that it was his death. Before he could rise, the shepherd sprang forward and gave him a slot-ward blow till the giant's head rolled off and went dancing away down the hillside. When the wedding guests saw that, they trembled with fear, and everyone scampered on his own way home. At first, as he could go without daring to give even one look behind him. The prince and the shepherd were left alone in the great courtyard. There they went down to the seashore, loosed the giant's magic boat, and rowed away from behind the island. Before long they were at the king's court, and never was a court so as glad as ever. Everyone wanted to see the brave man who had rescued the princess. When he went away, people had pointed their fingers at him and cried, "Look at that simpleton!" But now they pointed and whispered, "See the brave man who killed the giants and set the princess free." Of course, there was the most splendid wedding when the shepherd married the princess, and for her dowry the king gave him half of the kingdom. After the king died, the shepherd ruled the whole kingdom. He was now very rich, but the little bell and the broken pipe were the most precious possessions. For many creatures they were kept in the treasure room of the palace, and if they had not been lost only a little while ago, they would be found there today. Alright, baby. Mama loves you. I'm sorry that the video stopped midway through it, but I wanted to finish out the book, of course. How about we sit and watch the rain as it falls from the sky, and we are glad to be inside where it is warm and dry. Oh yes, I do love the rain. It keeps the earth so clean. It helps the pretty flowers grow from the mountains to the streams. I love you, baby. Mama loves you so very much. Like Papa used to always say, Mama's his sun, Papa's my moon, and you are a rainbow baby, honey. We love you no matter what, we love you. How about Lila Tove? And good night to you, Lila Tove. May your dreams come true. We sing Lila Tove. May Israel protect you throughout the night until we reach the morning light. Good night, my baby. I love you. I love you so very much.